Welcome to the Friends of Zane Adams, aka FOZA Podcast, bringing awareness of postpartum depression, suicides, and the children who are left behind. We'll be spotlighting positive outcomes from mothers as well as healthcare experts and counselors. Would you know the signs of PPD? Would you know how to help a loved one? Stay tuned. As a community, we can do more to support maternal mental wellness.
Welcome, FOZA family, friends, and fans. This is Paulette Smith with episode 46 of the FOZA Podcast. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in and helping us spread awareness about maternal mental wellness. Your support helps us build pathways to education, resources, and compassionate advocacy. But before proceeding, I need to say a few words about triggers. This is a safe place, but we may discuss sensitive topics that can be emotionally triggering. If you're in crisis, please call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. If you're not in immediate danger, but you need to talk with someone, reach out to your doctor or a qualified care provider. And if you still feel as if your voice is not being heard, please don't give up. Visit us at FOZAinc.org. We can help you find resources in your local area, and you're never required to share any personal or sensitive information. Now, today's topic was inspired by an article I came across titled, "Are Intrusive Thoughts or Hearing Voices Scaring You?" That article was written by today's guest, Dr. Alexandra Rogers. The article resonated deeply with me because many of our listeners have shared their experiences, especially feelings of fear, shame, or of being dismissed when they open up about having intrusive or negative thoughts. And so reading Dr. Rogers' article made me want to learn more, and I reached out to her. I learned that she's a psychologist, a published author, and a lifetime mental health advocate. Over the course of her career, she's worked in individual and group therapy, school-based interventions, parenting support, and autism advocacy. She's also led topics on suicide, prevention, and family wellness. So we're grateful, very grateful, that she accepted our invitation and that we have her here with us today.
Well, good evening. Greetings, Dr. Rogers, and I want to welcome you to the FOZA Podcast. I want to thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to speak with you.
Wonderful. So wonderful of you to take your time. So go ahead and please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and the important work that you continue to do.
Okay, so I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I'm now retired from my psychology practice, but I continue to be active in the community. I have an autism support group that I moderate in our area here, local area in Austin, Texas. And I'm also doing parenting groups in my neighborhood because we have a lot of new moms here.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And yes, and I'm also an author. When I stopped working in my private practice, I began to write books and articles about mental health, really all aspects of mental health, but my books focus on parenting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to dive right in because that's how I got to learn more about you. I came across one of your articles. We here at FOZA, we search on topics that, of course, align with our organization, and I ran across this wonderful article you wrote called, "Are Intrusive Thoughts or Hearing Voices Scaring You?" And amazingly, I was just speaking to a young mom yesterday, and she was telling me that she wasn't in danger, but she was kind of concerned about some intrusive thoughts she was having. She was planning on taking her toddler to some maybe like amusement park or something like that, and she said immediately she started thinking negative thoughts. And so I told her I hope that she's going to be tuning in when we air this, because really your what you say in your article just hit home. So I wanted to ask you if you could tell us what inspired you to write about this particular article and how these thoughts show up for new moms during postpartum.
Okay, well, the article that I wrote was basically an article teaching people about the difference of intrusive thoughts and hallucinations, because a lot of times when people have intrusive thoughts, let me define intrusive thoughts. Those are thoughts that are foreign to you. You start thinking about things that you would never do. You start thinking about negative things that could happen to your baby or to your family members or to yourself. You start thinking about suicide. And these thoughts are like random, and they come out of nowhere when you're going about your business. And if they keep up, people get very distraught and they think they're losing their mind. And they think that they're, schizophrenic or something. And so the reason I wrote about the difference between intrusive thoughts and hallucinations is because so that people would calm down and not worry about, losing their minds.
Right.
And, of course, schizophrenia is a whole nother ball of wax. So that's why I wrote the original article. Now, in terms of intrusive thoughts in postpartum depression, and sometimes it's obsessive-compulsive disorder, they really center around fear of harming the baby, doing maybe dropping the baby falling off the changing table, baby drowning in bath water, scalding the baby with hot water, feeding it wrong, feeding the wrong formula, neglecting the baby if it cries a lot, not loving the baby enough, the baby not loving you, and again, thoughts of suicide. Sometimes if people have postpartum depression mixed in with obsessive-compulsive disorder, OCD, the thoughts can also include images. People actually see images, like they'll see blood on the carpet, or they'll see something superimposed on objects in the room. And that's also very scary, but it's treatable.
Right, and that's the wonderful part, that it is treatable, and there are people like you who can help people distinguish between the different feelings they may be having or the different thoughts that they may be having. And we always encourage our listeners to don't hesitate to get the proper kind of, to check with their doctor, check with their medical team, and get a referral. But I was wondering if you could also help us think about, or you could maybe speak about, when a person might be having these and they're not in danger, they are, it may be a normal situation where they may be thinking this, but it doesn't last, it goes away.
Eventually it goes away whether you get on medication or not, but the shortcut is always easier. And from my understanding, I'm not a medical doctor, but from what I've read, the antidepressant medications that are typically given for these problems are safe for the baby, and they're safe, in terms of nursing the baby. So, to get a shortcut, because it's stressful enough having a baby, a new baby. So you don't want to feel extra unwell in that situation.
Right.
But also,
go ahead.
One of the things that I want to stress is that with the intrusive thoughts, they're foreign to the people who are having them. They would never dream of hurting the baby. Right. And although the thoughts are distressing, they can rest assured that they're not going to act on them. Because that's another thing that people are afraid of, is that when they're having these thoughts, they're actually going to act on them.
Right. Well, we get a lot of comments from moms who say that they're struggling with negative self-talk. Is that the same thing as?
That's the same thing. And it happens, because It usually happens with first-time moms.
Right.
Because it's like the anxiety of firsts. Anytime you do anything that's major, that's really important to you, anytime you do something for the first time, there's anxiety about not being able to do it well. But then as you repeat doing it, the same thing and the same thing, then you get more comfortable with it. So it starts out as the anxiety of firsts. And new moms, of course, we don't know. You were a new mom. I was a new mom. And of course you don't know anything. You might read a book. I mean, I read a book, and then by the time the baby came, I forgot what it said. I had to refer back to it. But eventually the baby teaches you through crying and silences and not responding or responding as to what it really means. So you learn the baby language. And then you start to feel more comfortable. That's a normal process. That's when you're not even depressed or anything. So if you have a tendency towards depression, if you've been depressed before, or if you've been anxious before, or if you had obsessive compulsive disorder before, it might come back to you. Then you have self-doubt that's illogical. There's a difference between self-doubt that's based on the reality of being a brand new parent and the self-doubt that happens maybe 4 weeks after you've had the baby there and you've been taking care of the baby. And the baby is still good, doing well.
Right. You know, we talk a lot about self-compassion and the role it plays in your day-to-day life, but especially in postpartum. And wondering if you have any thoughts about that, if you think that's important to actually practice self-compassion.
I think practicing self-compassion is important from the day you're born until the day you die. And
very good.
So I definitely believe in that. People might be puzzled about what self-compassion means, and that to me it means that you allow yourself mistakes, and if you make a mistake, then you just fix it, and you go on.
Okay.
And you try to learn as much as you can, and you make another mistake, and then you go on. And you learn from it. You learn from mistakes.
So true. I just read a poem by, not a poem, but just a statement made by Dr. Maya Angelou. And she said, I've never lost. I've only won or I've learned. And I thought that was so powerful. I just thought it was so powerful.
Yeah. You basically learn, when you make a mistake, it's so noxious to you that you remember it, and that's how you learn. Absolutely.
So we're on the right track when we practice self-compassion. I wanted to also talk about something else that I hear from moms, and this is why we do the podcast. We get the questions and the comments, and then we try to make sure that they have a forum they can come to and they can listen and they can feel like they're not alone, because sometimes they just say how alone they feel. They also say that they feel dismissed. They feel misunderstood when they try to reach out for help. And we're always seeking ways that we can help them feel like their voice is being heard.
Right. So, one of the things that I would recommend is try to get a female doctor, because there's no way that a man can understand anything about birth, because they don't experience it.
Right.
And they don't experience any of the hormone changes, because what happens when the baby is born is that, first of all, you're sleep deprived, because you have to feed the baby in the middle of the night. And then on top of that, there's a sudden drop in hormones after birth. And the hormones actually go back to your pre-pregnancy level. But because the drop is so sudden, it puts the body in shock.
Right.
And you feel weak and spent. And, you might feel numb as well. And that's for all mothers. well, all new mothers.
Right.
So, and a lot of times with new families right now, a lot of people complain that they're far away from their relatives. Like the moms and the dads, they live in different states than the kids who are having babies. And so they don't have the normal support of the grandparents like we did in the olden days when, families stayed in the same location. It was more frequent, more common to stay in the same location.
And you have the village effect.
Yeah, so you have to learn to compensate for that by reaching out to friends to make sure that you have friends that can help you, and don't be shy about asking for help, because even if your friends didn't have babies, they'll step forward and help you. And you tell them what kind of help you need, and they'll step forward and help you if they're your friends.
Right. It's the professionals that the moms sometimes have problems with. We stress whenever we have a mom speaking up. We stress that you stress getting a female doctor. We also stress getting a therapist if it's not the medical doctor that they're having problem communicating with. We stress that they get a therapist that has had some experience with postpartum, because every therapist or every counselor, has not. And we're just wondering, though, when it comes to medical doctors, and I know you're not a medical doctor, but I know you're in that space, how does she gain her confidence when she's speaking to someone who is an expert and she's feeling like she doesn't really know what to say or how to express herself?
Well, you prepare it on paper before.
Yeah.
Well, to make sure you don't forget anything. Because when you get in the exam room, sometimes they're rushed and they act like they don't want to listen to you. Absolutely. But if you give it to them and either typed out or written out, and all of your questions, the way you feel, take 2 days to write it before your appointment to make sure that you have everything in there, and they'll be happy to get it in writing. I've done it with doctors myself many times. They just take the piece of paper and sit there and read it. Sometimes they read it with a highlighter.
That is
because
awesome.
If you go, and then because if you go in there, you might get anxious and forget everything you were going to say. So
that can happen, and we do stress to all of our moms. As a matter of fact, one of our podcasts is 100% talking about journaling. So we do encourage young moms to, even though it might seem like it's going to take more of their time than they feel they have, it's so worth it. You don't have to be an author, but to just write down your feelings, if you just jot them down in little notes and just keep them together, and so helpful when you do get in front of your medical care team or when you do get in front of your therapist. It's amazing how, like you said, you can kind of like get off track, especially if you're already anxious and stressful.
Right. Yeah, that, getting your feelings out, because you might not have anybody to talk to, or they get tired of listening to you complain, and they make it known that they're tired of listening to you complain about this and that and the other. Just write it out.
Right. And that can exacerbate the situation. Well, you are
definitely.
And you are an expert at helping moms find themselves, and I can tell that because I got your book, read it, and it was full of beneficial and useful information. I don't know a young mom who wouldn't, or even a seasoned mom, because I believe the age is from 2 to 11. I don't know a seasoned mom who wouldn't find little gems, little pieces of diamonds and gold in what you were saying. So tell us about your book, Your Journey to Successful Parenting, and how it can provide some insight into parenting and hopefully the mental wellness lens as well.
Right. So I wrote my book to help moms who can't afford to go to therapy, basically. with their kids, either because they don't have the money, or they live too far away from therapists, or they don't have insurance. What I did is I put in the book I thought of all the things that I recommended to parents over the years as I worked with them and their kids, and I put it in the book, but I did it in an organized manner to help parents understand the reasons behind certain behaviors, and then help them learn how to manage certain behaviors. And then I also talked about mental health issues with kids, because some kids have really bad mental health issues. Depression can start from childhood. It doesn't show up as depression. It shows up as anxiety. But many children came to my practice with a lot of anxiety. Also, many children had been molested. I worked with children who had been molested. So, all sorts of things happen to children. Sometimes the parents don't even know that it happened to them because it happens at school. Not necessarily molestation, but things that frighten them, things that puzzle them, things that upset them. Friendships become very important around the age of 10 and 11. They become paramount. And so I put all that in the book, so parents can be prepared for the future and can use it as a handbook.
They can keep coming back to it. That is great.
Yeah.
Now, so I know it might be very difficult for you to say one piece of advice or whatever, but if you could offer a piece of advice to a new mom or a parent listening right now who may be struggling, what would it be?
Okay.
By your book.
Yeah, well, it's not about my book, but it's also a piece of advice that I give in the book. Stop worrying about whether you're doing things the wrong way. First of all, what the right way to parent changes over time. It changes with each generation. So, and people have survived their parents and the parenting of their parents through the years. So try to learn as much as you can. You can read, you can talk to other people, you can listen to podcasts. But if you don't do exactly what is suggested, don't sweat it. The reason some methods might not work for you is because your child's personality and your personality are not perfect for that method. So in my book, I tried to show different methods and what works for what personality.
And you did.
But the basic message is, do your parenting the way it feels natural. Try to be nice. Try to be understanding. Try not to be mean. And make sure that your kids do what they're supposed to be doing. And that's it.
Well, that's pretty good. Now, I know it's going to be hard to believe that we're coming down to the end of our time because it goes by so fast. But I wanted to make sure before we got out of here that we could share with our listeners where they can find your book or connect with you, and to let us know if you have any upcoming events or any appearances or book signings, anything like that.
Okay, so my website is ajrogersbooks.com. And what I'll do is I'll post on there all of my appearances. I don't do book signings, but I've got several appearances, YouTube videos and such, podcasts lined up. And I'll put them as I do them and people give me the links, I'll post them all there.
Well,
for people.
We're going to give you the link to this one. And I just know that it's going to be beneficial. I've already passed your book on to a couple of people, so I know it's going to be beneficial. And I just wanted to thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and caring for families everywhere for so long. We're so grateful that you came here to join us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
And FOZA fans, I want to tell you, don't leave us just yet, Dr. Rogers. I'm going to get with you, but I just wanted to tell the listeners if they heard anything that resounded with them, to please share this episode with someone who may need it. And remember, tell them they're not alone. You're not alone. Support is available. I want you to visit FOZAinc.org for more resources. You know we always put the podcast there, and we always put resources there that link to the podcast and relate to it. So we'll be back next time with more conversations about maternal mental wellness. And until then, I'm going to ask you to take care of yourself and one another in loving memory of Christina LaShawn Thompson Adams. Bye-bye.